Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, and today I'll be conducting a master class when it comes to Pydantic AI. So essentially guys, this is a part of my AI agents playlist as well. So we've covered raw Python as well, wherein you can build agents using raw Python. Then we specifically covered LangGraph, and now we are moving towards Pydantic. So guys, I've been talking about a lot when to use a framework, when to use vanilla Python, but guys, Pydantic is a framework and it is gaining popularity for sure. Now, does that mean that if you know Pydantic, you can create exceptional agents? Probably yes and no. But let's just kind of deep dive into what this is, where it can be used, what are the use cases, and let's just get started. So, guys, the first thing that we'll be talking about today is, let me just see that. So, the first thing is just guys some starting comments, right? So, let me just move to my board for some time so that I can just talk about some starting comments before we get started. So guys, see, what are we trying to do? We are trying to build agents, right? So what are agents? Now this is a very difficult question to answer, but for the context of this discussion and scope of this masterclass, you can consider any code, okay, which can do an economical job. So for the time being, for this masterclass context, this is a good definition that we'll be writing some code which can do an economical job. Now guys, not necessarily like we'll be doing some big job, but for sure we'll be, let's say, chatting with the system, right? So once you maybe understand that right now, uh, what are we trying to do exactly? The whole world at application layer. So if you look at the application layer, right now intelligence is integrated, right? So you have intelligence that is integrated to your application. How? That is done by an API call. Now, the heart of the matter is this only. Rest is all like, okay, we're using an open source model, closed source model. Let's say we're using some fancy model, some non-fancy model. All that is fine, but the heart of the application layer is this, which is API call. Now guys, let's just try to move a little back and try to, let's say, visualize fast API. So guys, I know I haven't released a playlist on fast API. I will do it for sure. But if you would have heard about this, right, fast API. Now, it is a backend framework. Backend framework. So guys, if you would know that every application, specifically, like if you would consider simply, they work very simply, right? You have a front end, then you specifically have backend. Now guys, your backend is kind of the main place, right, where your agent's logic, or let's say any other logic, would reside, right? So fast API is a very popular Python framework which helps you build backend application, and lately it is winning over Flask as well as Django. And the reason, right, the everything comes with the reason, right? The reason is that fast API is async by nature. So guys, the job of what is async and all, so let's just try to understand that as well a bit. Although in my YouTube I have a specific, like, 2 3 lectures covering async, but in general guys, see, whenever we do a task, right, there are two ways to do a task. Either you can do it in a sync fashion, or you can do it in an async fashion. Now in an async fashion, what happens is your system, like, the system doesn't blocks anything, right? So let's say there are 100 users, and one of the user has made a query which, just assume, is going to take 2 to 3 minutes to answer. Now if your system is sequential by default, so until and unless guys this thing, right, this thing will not be finished, other 99 users can't really do anything on the app, because this is a big operation and it's just there, right? Those 99 users cannot do anything. But the moment you implement async, right, so things move in parallel. So it's not that this operation would just stop your application. Things would move in a parallel manner. So I like this example, right? This is a very good example. So if you would essentially ask anyone to explain async in a simple manner, a lot of times they give this example of a restaurant, right? So it's not necessarily the idea that you will come and someone will take an order, then let's say make curry for you, and then is gonna make breads for you, then is gonna maybe create a plate. All this would move in a little parallel manner, right? You will give an order, curry will get started, breads will get started, your plates would get started, and maybe at the end everything would aggregate. And right, this is very important, guys. So fast API is like known for its async nature. It helps you create backend applications, backend APIs, and it's not difficult to understand. Probably in some time I'll have a dedicated masterclass for fast API as well, but that's okay. Now we are talking about Pydantic AI. Now the question is that why do we need these things? What is this Pydantic AI? Okay, try to understand. Let's just walk to the introductory part of the course. That is just the fact that we'll be seeing one example. So this is a simple example. Okay, let's just quickly see the code. So we are importing Pydantic, and for the time being, let me give you a theoretical walkthrough of Pydantic first. So I think there are two terms right here, Pydantic and AI. AI, I think you understand well. Let's just talk more about Pydantic. So why is this a little more popular? So guys, see, when was the first time I used Pydantic is that, as I was telling, right, fast API is used a lot when it comes to backend development. Okay, now it's kind of cool, right, that your backend development obviously would have a database, right? So you would be writing some code which would eventually be doing a lot of CRUD operations over your database, right? A very simple use case, right? Now, what does Pydantic do is that using Pydantic, you can define a class. So you can define a class, let's say class of users. You can import something known as base model, and then you can define your own schema. So you can define your own schema. Now, what is the advantage of defining that own schema, right? The point is that whenever a record would get inserted in your database, if you follow that Pydantic structure, right? If you will have that Pydantic thing in your code implemented, everything that would be ingested would be in a proper format. Okay, and guys, this thing you will understand as you like slowly move things. Every SDK, right? Every popular uh, Gen AI SDK, right? Let's say you're talking about LangChain. Let's say you talk about, I think LangChain is more on a wrapper on top of a wrapper, so we can skip LangChain for the time being. Let's just kind of think that OpenAI, right? So OpenAI's SDK, right? Let's say the Python SDK is specifically built on top of Pydantic. So this is an important thing you should know, and probably you will just understand once we get into the coding part. And guys, as I said, that coding is not necessarily very difficult. It's just the fact that you need to understand few concepts, and code wise, I think right, coding is the first probably a very important field which is like moving very fast, and you don't need to necessarily, right, remember a lot of syntax these days. I think things are there to help you for sure. And let's just move, guys, let's just move to our first example. So let's just try to see what we'll be doing. So we'll be covering with the starting comments, which is done. Now guys, we'll be covering intro to Pydantic. So let's just try to move in through the code base, and let's just try to see what is this code doing. So see guys, as I said, that it's not difficult at all. The only thing that you need to understand is that you need to import Pydantic. Then you need to define a class. Now what is this class? This class is inheriting base model, and you're defining your schema that age of the user should be in int, name should be in string, and email should be in string. That's pretty cool, right? And then we are just defining a simple instance of the class like we do in oops, and we are just printing the attributes. I think that works, right? Now see, what is going to happen is that if you're going to like create a valid user, and then you would write that valid user created, it's going to get created. But the moment someone is trying to like kind of ingest data into the system which is not of the correct type, right? So let's just try to break it down. Let's just try to see what is the data type of int that I have defined. Sorry, the data type of age. The data type of age is int. Now let's just move down. What is happening over here? Age is written in text format 25. Do you think guys it's right? Let's say you're building a production grade database and the user is entering 25 instead of 25, right? I mean 25 to instead of 25 it's entering TWE and TY something something. So do you think guys that should be ingested in your database, or do you think there should be some validation being done before ingesting the data into the database? And guys, backend development is primarily this only, right? Obviously, right, the part is that all your logic layer is essentially backend only, but that doesn't mean that it's something magical, right? Mostly backend development would essentially just be doing a lot of CRUD operations over a database, over some user input, some master logic created by some domain expert. All these things are only included in backend, right? So we want to make sure that whatever goes into the database follows a particular data type. And that's pretty much it, guys. So Pydantic helps you enforce the data type. So for the time being, this much knowledge is enough. Now let's just try to run it, right? You will see that if I run this, so py, so let's just try to see where it is. So it is in my Pydantic. So cd Pydantic, and let's just try to run this. So py lecture lucture 17 underscore 0 dot py. So see guys, here you're able to see we got a validation error. Now this validation error is very important. Also you're able to see that input should be an integer, right? So that's how Pydantic work, right? So that's very important. Now let's just try to, like, meanwhile also let's try to improve our knowledge on Pydantic a little more. Let's just try to maybe let's just make it big. It's not making big, so that's the problem. Let's just make it a little small. Yeah, and let's just try to remove this. uh, let's just, what is Pydantic in Python and why is it used? So you can even just ask an LLM. So see guys, defining and validating data models, and this is a big task guys. To you it might seem that whatever comes goes. In SQL it is a very problematic part, right? In a NoSQL database still you have slightly more flexibility in just pushing stuff inside it, but for a SQL database this is very important that you enforce data validation at runtime, right? See this type safety, that like what essentially is going inside it needs to be of a particular data type, otherwise the system could crash, your database could be corrupted. There's a lot of other things as well, but if you're able to see, primarily data validation is a key feature of Pydantic. Now let's just move to the second topic of the day. What is the second topic guys? Let's just try to see. The second topic is basic elements of an agent. So we'll be starting with basic elements of an agent, and the first thing is we'll be building a basic agent. So guys, see, I think I created a very fancy definition of agent. I don't think this is this fancy. So let's just try to see what is happening. So let me just close the chat window. I don't think we need the chat window as of now. Yeah. So guys, as spoken, right, Pydantic AI is a framework. So let's just move to the board a bit for quick, like the final comments on Pydantic. So guys, for simple terms, you can consider that Pydantic AI is a framework. Okay. Now let's say you primarily don't understand what the framework is. Skip it. It's a Python library. What does a Python library do? It makes your life easy. So that means you can create Gen AI applications using Pydantic AI. That much is fine. And I just gave you a bit of history as well, that why people are like switching towards Pydantic and who uses Pydantic. But all that is your choice, guys. As I've been speaking from day one, the lecture one of my AI agents playlist, I made one thing clear. I'm making that thing again clear before I'm starting the course, right? I can also make a very fancy thumbnail and say that the only skill needed to build AI agents is Pydantic AI. It's probably not true, right? It's a framework. right? So it's just a framework. So it's not that if you know a framework you can do pretty much everything. It's just like it just eases your life a bit. So whenever you're building agents specifically, right, so just you would, if you're using a framework, then maybe you can consider Pydantic as well, Pydantic AI as well. So it's a good skill to have, sort of more of a thing. So let's just move to the structure. So guys, let's just see the basic agent code. So guys, see, it's not very difficult. Line by line walkthrough I'll be giving you. So let's just try to increase the thing a bit so that you are able to see stuff better. Yeah. So from Pydantic, we are importing agent. I'm importing OS. I'm importing .env so that my environment variables are there. So I'm loading in Gemini API key. In the course, I've shown you how to make the Gemini API key. It's free, guys. Start using it. Even on the free tier, the limit is pretty much good to get started, and I think it's a good place to get started. And then, guys, this is how simply you can like wrap everything up, right? So you just have to call the agent instance, and it's just like you just have to like call this agent thing that you have created. So you just need to create a, let's say, an object of the class, and you just need to define the model name, then what is the system prompt, and there you go. You can just get started and run the system. Run.sync. Run sync is the command that's going to run things in a synchronized manner, and that's probably okay if you're just getting started, right? And specifically for teaching purposes, I don't think async on day one really helps it. So just keep on implementing sync things as well. It's not that bad as well. Obviously any production grade application, guys, nowadays would be just built on async only. Just remember that. But to start with, I think sync is fine. Okay, so you're able to see how simply in 1 to 2 lines of code I have defined the agent. I have even ingested a system prompt, and now I can run it. So guys, what is Pythagoras theorem? And we want the system to reply like in the funniest, in like a funny thing, right? Let's just try to run it. Okay, let's just try to see what was the result. So it is a theorem so famous it has got its own pants and really catchy jingle. So guys, I'm sorry I didn't get that joke, but yeah, that's the part, right? So uh, it's able to do stuff. You're able to just quickly get started on building your agents. Now essentially, if you're building a system where you need to have a chat like kind of an interface, you can just get started like this, just 2 lines of code and get started on it. So that's how you create a basic agent on the line. The next topic is structured response. So guys, yes, we'll be covering this as well. Important part, and quite important part otherwise as well, since essentially okay, that's kind of weird. Let's just go over here and press Control B. Yes. So okay, see, structured output is again something that's very easy in Pydantic AI. Just let me go to the board and explain you structured output a bit from the theoretical aspect. So structured outputs, right? So it's not essentially difficult at all. So okay, see, whenever we want an LLM, right? We have an LLM and we have a task. Now, the task is that, let's say you have a task that whatever review is coming in, you just want an LLM to score it. And then this thing would directly go into the database. As I said, guys, let's say you're using a SQL database. Sometimes an LLM will maybe give you string, integer, JSON, and stuff. Structured output just helps an LLM make sure that, hey, whatever output you're giving, it needs to follow a particular structure, and creating that in Pydantic is super easy. Again, guys, that's the part of using a framework. It really eases your life. That's pretty much it. Now if I'll say that, hey, Pydantic is the best framework, then you will say, why did we learn LangGraph, or let's say whatever next framework or next thing I'm going to be teaching you. So just try to expand on your knowledge base, and whatever use case you have, use that. Now guys, simple use case. It's just, as I said, you just need to create a class. You need to import this base model. That's pretty much it. And once you do that, all you need to do is result type is equal to response. That's it, guys. Only thing that you need to do is create a class, okay, and define whatever structured output you want. So let's just see what is the use case. So we are saying Given a product review rated from 1 to 10, so what would you want the output to be? You would want the output to be strictly integer, so that you could just push that into the database, and from that database you can, let's say, create a dashboard or do any sort of ad hoc analysis which you want to do. And this thing is really nice, right? So see, now as I said, that run underscore sync is the command that's going to call it, and you can just call it, right? So let's just try to run this. So you'll be able to see how nice it is. Let's just try to see this. Lecture2.py. So guys, see, you're able to get that if the product is super slow and boring, the rating is 2, and otherwise the rating is 10. So guys, you're able to see, let's say you want to create any application in your organization, you're building a startup in which you want to integrate a layer of structured output. Tell me, isn't Pydantic super easy, right? And any framework, even the like whichever API provider you would be using, even their SDK would be quite sufficient nowadays to give you this. But still, let's say you want to go for a proper framework, so that, let's say, I want to use Gemini in the same instance, and let's say OpenAI in the same instance, or I want to use GPT models, I want to use Mistral models. Everything could be just wrapped inside it, guys. That's the power of Pydantic AI. Only thing is you need to change this parameter. Now guys, you're able to see that the code is simple, there's nothing much, and things are going very smooth. Let's just move to the next topic. The next topic is class in Python versus data classes in Python. Now guys, this is something that has nothing to do with AI agents in general, but I thought that let's include it because it's sort of a thing which I think you should be knowing it. So guys, see, we all like create classes in Python, right? So let me just show you this thing. So guys, whenever we started studying OOPS, right? So this was the way we used to do it. That, hey, class person, then you create an init, then you create an init constructor and make sure that these are the attributes that are associated with the class person, and then you create a object of the class, and then you print the attributes. Now this is something we've been doing from our childhood, right? And pretty much works well. I have no problem with this as well. But guys, Pydantic suggests us to use something known as data classes, and data class is simple. All you need to use is just the data class decorator. In backend only, your init constructor and everything would get constructed, right? So it's just that you don't need to necessarily write the init constructor and other things as well. Everything just happens in the backend. So that's the advantage of using data classes. Both of the ways are fine, guys. See, at the end you just need to create a class, but Pydantic suggests that we should be using data classes, and it's a little more cleaner, right? Okay, tell me, from code readability point, is this better or this better? Probably you'll be able to see that this is slightly better, right? Since you're not defining a init method, and it kind of just pulls out the syntax thing, and it's good to use as well. Now the catch over here is, guys, there are two aspects to look at this situation, right? Let's just discuss both aspects. One aspect is that, hey, it kind of looks nice, the readability is nice, it kind of creates an abstract layer. I don't necessarily need to add a init method. Now here is like the traditional way. Okay, sometimes it's good to even have those things which we've been using from traditional times, right? It's not everything. The moment you start working in abstract representations, right? So sometimes things can get a little confusing as well, right? So just try to note this. Otherwise, guys, this is fine. This is not abstract representation at all. It's just you have a data class and you're just trying to create attributes of it. So we're good out there. So it's very simple, guys. Nothing on the code part. That's why I've broken down it into multiple chunks so that we are very clear. You don't feel overburdened by code. So let's just try to run it. So guys, see, the output of it is pretty much same. It doesn't matter, right? But one thing is a little more, I don't want to use the word fancy. So, but yeah, it's kind of a little more clean, better to read, better to maintain, better to test, and definitely much more perks. So you just need to remember that data classes are nothing. They're just classes in Python, but you don't need to necessarily write an init method and other things. Everything gets created in backend. It's just you need to use this constructor. So guys, yeah, things are moving good. Let's just try to maybe take a pause. Let me just have water as well. So this is uh, my first like raw live class, and I'll be trying to create such more master classes as well, so that everyone is equipped with the better knowledge, and we're trying to cover a lot of things in one video rather than multiple videos. I think that's what is better for all of us. I also just need to sit once, and you just also need to sit once. So that's also done, guys. Let's just move to the next topic. Tool calling with structured output. Now, guys, this tool calling, right? Let's just try to talk about this a bit. Okay, my pen is not working. Uh, it shouldn't have been the case. It should work. Okay, allow me one sec, guys. My pen has stopped working, and it's quite normal, quite natural, I would say. Let's just try to connect it. Sorry for the inconvenience. Is my pen working now? Okay, it's kind of working now. Yeah. So guys, tool calling. So tool calling is covered like in multiple sections, right? So we have covered like using LangChain, we have covered using LangGraph, we have covered, and now we are covering specifically in terms of Pydantic AI as well. So it's kind of very important thing, guys. The I feel that tool calling is primarily the function that can really like create smart applications. And guys, what are tools? Tools are nothing. Tools are just Python functions. Nothing else, guys. It's just the Python functions that you've been defining from whenever you started learning Python. And you want your LLM to have an access to Python functions so that it could just be more smart, right? This Python function can contain any logic in the world, right? Can contain any logic. So these Python functions can contain any logic. Now let's say I run a business and this is my logic. I can write an inside a Python function, let an LLM call it. It can go to a database and query and give you results in real time. It can take an API, make an API call in real time and orchestrate results and give you results based on that. So guys, Python functions, making sure your what do you call your LLM kind of works very well with tool calling is an integral part, and there are few provide LLM providers which just work very well. And so it's not that OpenAI is better, Google is bad, or something on those lines, but just make sure that you test your application very well, right? So whenever you have an application where the number of tools is large, you must test it well, right? Just make sure that everything is super well working, because sometimes, guys, we miss a lot of things, and it's just a little more testing to do, right? So just test your application very well. So this has been my learning whenever I've been implementing functions and tool calling. Just try to make sure that you're testing your application very well. Now let's just try to move ahead and try to see how do we implement it. So guys, again, this is not difficult at all. So let's just try to see the code. Basic import .env, we've been doing this. I don't think I'm setting up the Gemini API key over here, so I don't think the system would work that way. Huh, that's fine. Yeah. So we've just set up the environment variable. Now guys, first of all, what is the use case? So given a product review, rate it from 1 to 10. So rating, review summary, and review length. Okay, fine. Now guys, see, I have written a function that will help me create and calculate review length. Now why do we need to do this? This is very important, guys. I'll explain you in like a little in depth, not like in full in depth, but a little in depth. So you would have seen, right? Sometimes it's very weird to think these things. LLMs are great at stuff in which humans are bad, and they are bad at stuff in which humans are good. It's kind of a very weird thing, right? How do we, like, you are just telling that what kind of function you have created? You've created a function. On one length, you're talking about AI agents, and in the same breath, you are talking about the fact that you will be writing a Python function that would give me the length of the product review. Obviously, this could be an important metric that what I'm not sure how important this metric is, but kind of a thing that uh, what is the length at which people are giving you review, right? Often it's seen that whenever the user is either very happy or very sad, they tend to write a lot of stuff, and when they are like, okay, then they kind of stick towards the average side of things. That's probably okay, but you're able to see that I had to just write a simple Python function that's gonna go in the go in backend and invoke a Python tool. But now, guys, uh, very importantly, GPT-5. What would GPT-5 be? So GPT 4. So we are already at a stage where GPT 4.5 is released. And guys, this is very important. Just try to listen to me. This would, like, even I'll say, kill the need to use a framework in terms of agentic, right? Agentic application. Just try to understand. What will 4.5 be? So let's just try to move to Twitter and try to understand what Sam was saying. You'll be thinking that why I'm breaking the class and breaking the flow. This is very important for you to understand, guys, because if you'll not understand these things, then there are multiple other instructors at YouTube as well, because I want to make sure that you understand stuff at a very greater depth. Let's just try to go to Sam. Just let's try to see what he's saying. So this is the product roadmap. Let's just try to read what is being told. We will next ship GPT 4.4, and the model we called Orion internally as our last non-chain of thought model. Now understand. So it would be primarily based on a transformers architecture, which would be, I think, accompanied by a lot of, uh, I would say, a lot of changes, maybe mixture of experts or who knows what. But probably they're saying that it could be their last non-chain of thought model, right? That means the model's primarily objective is to predict the next token. Now, why I'm focusing on this, like, there's a lot of people who say do this framework, do that framework. Now understand what would GPT-5 do. In both are, so what they are saying is, after that, a top goal for us is to unify O series models and GPT series models by creating a system that can use all our tools, know when to think for a long time or not. So guys, there is a rumor, I'm not sure whether that's true or not. So probably Claude 4 is around the corner, and it would have this kind of a feature. Now this is the same thing, guys. The API provider, right? Let's say OpenAI, when they release GPT-5, every organization will move every application. They're going to simplify their product offering to GPT-5. And then necessarily, let's say you ask a thing that can you compute the length of this, right? Or let's say the famous question, R's in strawberry. Strawberry. How many R's are there in strawberry, right? If you ask these kind of questions, it can simply invoke a Python tool. Right now, you want to maybe pass that Python tool and create an agent out of it, which is kind of cool. I've been doing that. But once your API provider in backend only will have access to Python tool, it's going to work very well. I think the latest Gemini version already has this, and Microsoft is like their assistance feature. There's something known as uh, assistants, right? So there is something known as, I think, OpenAI assistants or something in Azure, which also has this feature. So a lot of things. So Google, I'll talk about Google, right? What Google has. So in their base API only, they would have Python interpreter as a tool for sure. They have their search as well. So that means if you'll be building a thing that would integrate, let's say, Gemini, then necessarily you don't need to code a search tool because it would be inbuilt into the API. So this is very new, huh? Just try to be aware. So right now I'm like writing a function and telling you how to just like, and it's simple, right? It's just you need to call a decorator and then you need to define that function and then you can just simply run it, right? So what is the use case? So the user is given a message that the product is super cool and amazing, and we just need to print data, right? That means whenever we need to extract the main thing, what the response is, we can just write dot data, and this is our output structure. Typical Pydantic way we are enforcing that, and we're just saying that given a product review rated from 1 to 10, cool. And now I have to define a function that counts the length of the message, which is kind of weird, right? You expect LLMs are so smart, right? They are. So now since we've opened Twitter, right, let's see this only. Let me go back and let me just see this chart. So you're able to see that your LLM O3 is kind of the top 1% and more than that, right? And Sam is, I think, internally telling that by the end of the year there might be a use case that O3 would be ranked number one in terms of code forces. Who knows? I think that's a very much big possibility, right? Because humans have like capacities. Even the best humans would have some capacities, but systems inherently don't have any limitations, right? You can overcome those limitations very well. Let's not go there, but you're able to see that if I need to create an LLM that has an like a connection or like a brain or something on those lines, that it needs to use a tool. It's simple, guys. Just call your agent and define the tool. That's pretty much it, guys. You're able to see how simply you're able to call the tool as well and define the output schema as well, right? So the use cases, given the product review rated from 1 to 10, fine, cool. Now the response would follow this Pydantic structure: rating, review summary, and review length. Now how would this review length be computed? Just think, maybe it's going to use this tool, right? Length of review. So it's going to take the review and get you the length of the review. So guys, this is very easy, I would say, not very difficult to understand. And that's why, guys, learning a framework is not super difficult, I would say. But I mean, figuring out the right use case to do something is rather more important. So let's just try to see our fourth file. And so see, guys, it has 38 characters. You can just verify this as well. So simply, guys, you can pass multiple tools and just try to get started with this thing. So try to build out some chatbots as well, which can, I think this is a beginner level project, and I think it's good to start with beginner level projects as well, because the delta between beginner and advanced is not necessarily any great generative AI knowledge. It's more towards engineering skills and creating systems, which would come with practice only. It's a good use case, I would say, an intermediate use case only, to have, let's say, a SQL system and a chatbot that can talk to it, right? It's a very common use case. A lot of organizations have done good work in this space, and pretty much this has to be a very starting point for any organization if they want to just quickly move and try to improve their analysis reporting. And more towards analysis and reporting is kind of fine, but the main thing is, let's say you are a customer service executive and you want to solve any query that how much time X takes, so you can have just a tool that's going to call that query. And that kind of works, that really is working well these days, and a lot of people, organizations are building that. So let's just move to the next topic. So what is the next topic? Now the next topic is dependencies. Okay, now guys, see, first of all, you would see that this seems to be a little more code written, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of a little complicated, but not very complicated. And guys, if you know like this much also, like intro to Pydantic, like the four parts of it, you're pretty good to go, I would say. And obviously like message history and log file is something that we need to cover in the masterclass that I'm creating. That would be covered. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So dependencies is uh, a little tricky, I would say, but not super tricky as well. So okay, let's just try to understand dependencies without any use case, right? Dependencies. Now guys, what I've been telling you, that what happens is that I want my LLM to call a tool, and I've been seeing that you can create a tool which is just a simple Python function which would, let's say, query a database. Query a database. Now this kind of seems very theoretically possible, right? There is no roadblockers out there, right? Obviously you need to do testing, but theoretically this is quite feasible. But now guys, tell me that whenever you're trying to query a database, can you query any database without creating a client? Right? So client is something that helps you communicate with the database. So can that stage be like kind of bypassed? No, you need a client, right? How can you do anything without a client? Every application, every backend application just starts by making sure that the clients and all are working well. So guys, there are two aspects to it. One is that why we are discussing dependency, so you can make sure that while coding you use this technique called as dependency injection or perhaps dependencies, and you don't like write the client inside the function. Okay, so one way is which I kind of use this, I kind of like, obviously I follow the modularity. So how do I do it is whenever my application starts, I say that let the client also be up. The client should be connected, right? So I just write some basic HTML code that gives me a go ahead that hey, the backend server is up and it is connected to your database, so that like it's kind of good that everything is connected. I can see stuff. But what Pydantic and some people specifically for production grade systems suggest is that for readability of code and testing of code, you shouldn't pass the client inside the function. You should rather keep it as a dependency. And then we need to follow some a little bit of syntactical over engineering stuff so that whenever the function is being called, it uses this client as a dependency, because in order to run a SQL query you are dependent on what? On client. So one thing is, hey, why just think so much, let's just wrap everything inside the function and let the function do the talking. But probably they don't want you to do that way in terms of production grade applications. And the main thing is less about production and non-production applications. I think the main thing is just code readability and testing, and I think that's pretty important for you as well to understand, right? So if you like from the initial part only start knowing best practices, I'm not sure how useful they would be, maybe not, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So now the thing is guys, in order to make sure that this client is passed to my function, I can use dependencies. I'm going to give you one more example, API key. Okay, so let's just talk about any API. Let's just talk about SERP. So what is SERP? SERP is like that Google API which offers a lot of stuff. So let's just talk about search. Now you're creating a chatbot that can search the internet. Cool, right? And as I said guys, in future only your API provider will do that, so you don't need to do that. But let's say you're doing it. Now the thing is, in order to make a SERP API call or a search API call so that I can fetch the Google API results, can I do it without an API key? No guys, right? How would I do it without an API key? Most of the communication in the world just happens with an API key, followed by encryption, decryption, blah blah blah. But API key is important. Now that becomes a dependency. Now you can say, why not just use environment variables and just like let it read from the .env or something on those lines. I do it that way, but that's not how it needs to be done in production as per Pydantic standards of doing things. So that's pretty much it guys, it's up to you, you want to use it or not. But I would say start with not using it. If your system is able to handle everything on day one and you don't expect the system to be massively big, it's probably going to work. But then let's say in future you would need to, let's say, do more stuff so you can use this concept. So that's where dependencies come in. Now let's just talk about imports. Good, nothing major. So first of all, for how the code flow would be, I think you're very well aware about .env and stuff. The first thing is, guys, you need to set up like a dependency injection. Okay, so first of all you need to create a class. Okay, and it needs to be wrapped in data class. You can do it without that as well. I just explained you, right, why do we use data class. So there are two considerations that we are talking about. One is the API key and the client. So client is going to help me communicate, and API key is, you know what an API key is. Now, what are these two? These two are dependencies which would be used by my Python function later on, and that Python function, I need my LLM and those Python function communicating somehow. Now, first of all, you need to create a class which has all the dependencies. So we're good till here. Then, guys, we need to create an agent. We've been doing that, and then we need to just define a, like, the we just need to pass the dependencies as my depth. So simple, guys. Now consider the use case what we are trying to do, guys. This is kind of interesting use case. We are using a decorator dot system prompt, and what we are saying is that the system prompt is going to be dynamically generated. So we'll be making an API call. Okay, we'll be making an API call with, let's say, this URL, and we'll be using this API key, and then we'll be getting a dynamic system message, right? All this like this, so much of like verbose code over engineering can be just done simply as well. But in order to show you, right, how you can make sure that your code is more clean as per Pydantic ways, I'm showing you this example, right? So you're able to see it's not difficult, guys. You are able to see the syntax. You might say that this seems a little complicated, but you don't need to write the syntax, right? Do you? You just need to understand the concept, and probably, as I said, that this is a little tricky, as you're able to see that I'm trying to write a code that's going to dynamically generate system message. This is not very difficult, guys. You can simply do that as well, but you're able to see that how you're able to like kind of implement this dependency injection, right? And then, guys, you just need to call the agent. That's pretty much it. It's very simple to do it, but the only thing is, if you're able to see that here I'm not necessarily passing in, if you're able to see that I'm not necessarily passing in the API keys in as a function parameter, I am passing it as a dependency. So that's pretty much it. I can pass it as a parameter as well, that doesn't matter, but you're able to see how it's kind of a little more abstract. So you can use it if you want to. Otherwise, guys, you can skip it as well. No major thing that your system is going to crash if you use that way. That's okay. Now, guys, the next feature that we'll be talking about is message history. Very simple to implement. And then you can just create like multiple chatbots as well, because this is only thing you need to know. So let's say you're asking the question, where does India come from, where does India come from, and then, guys, in the message history you just need to pass the previous message dot all message, right? So you can create one list and maybe just append everything and make sure it's in the format suited for Pydantic and pass it. Not very difficult, right? So let's just try to run this code. It's very simple. Only thing you're able to see, we need to pass message history and like result one dot all messages. So are you able to see one thing, guys? That Pydantic is very simple. Obviously, this dependency injection is not something you'll be using, right? As I said, you can just make a Python function and pass API key as a parameter. If you want to do that way, it's fine as well. But you're able to see that it's kind of easy, right? I would say it's a little easier than LangGraph. LangGraph was a little all over the place. LangChain was super easy as well. This is also super easy. You're able to see how simply you can just pass like message history with just one parameter. Then let's say you can create an agent here. You can provide any LLM provider. Then, guys, specifically with the structured outputs is so simple, just result types. So everything is just one argument based, right? Nothing major we are doing till now. Tool calling, just write a decorator and make sure it has access to it. So it's kind of cool, right? It's not very difficult. It's kind of a place where you would be like in future as well, that like you're able to see, right? Even passing the history is just like result dot all messages. Earlier days, when earlier chat, not earlier days, this is more like, I would say, one not 1 year back, I think 1.5 year back. uh, you would have to write that prompt, make sure everything is wrapped inside the prompt, that goes inside the LLM, make sure your history is there. Right now you just need to pass like dot all messages and get it done. So I think you're able to see, guys, it's not very difficult, these things nowadays, specifically with frameworks. So that's why I'm covering frameworks specifically, so that you could just get started on building applications without knowing a lot of nitty-gritties about code as well. So let's just try to see. So guys, see, the first result is the name India is derived from Indus River, and the second result is, so the second question was, what was the first question I said? So where does India come from? Why? Because I'm passing in the messages. Now that's pretty much easy, guys. Now using this, you can create a chatbot, create a RAG application, create anything you want. And also if you need specifically anything, just ping me, right? So you can ping me directly on Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you're comfortable. Now guys, let's just try to cover maybe the last topic. Yeah, that is Logfire. Wow, what a name, Logfire. So guys, lately it's been very important to monitor stuff, right? Because if you're not able to monitor stuff, then essentially your application would be very bad, right? It's gonna actually suck, I would say. So the thing is that a smart application, right? A smart application, a smart product would always have a lot of monitoring involved, right? Because if you don't get monitoring right from the start only, you would be in a problematic stage, because you wouldn't know what are the pain points of your users, right? See, there are two aspects. One is more like the way a lot of US based organizations and startups work, right? You iterate very quickly because you're getting a lot of user information which you've configured, right? That's the job of, let's say, a product manager, a product engineer, or some like developer who has thought that should I capture this thing. So all these granularities, like basic thing, what is the latency of my app? Is my app enabling streaming or not? How bad and good is the user experience in terms of high, what do you say, high workload times, right? So all these things are very important, so you need to understand this, guys. If you look at what Logfire is, it's nothing, it's just similar to what we covered. So what was the thing, I'm just forgetting the name of it. Langsmith. So it's just, you can consider Langsmith only. So let's just try to run this application, and then I'll show you that what is it. So code wise, guys, we are doing nothing. We're just calling an agent with a simple function. What is Pythagoras doing? All the things we are doing is we have configured Logfire, and we have configured a Logfire token, right? Which you can just like you can directly copy paste this code, and then it's going to take you to a link where you can generate a Logfire token. I think you're that smart, you can do that stuff. So let's just try to get it here, and let's just try to run it. Lecture 17.7.py, and let's just go to the Logfire thing, and let's just try to see the dashboard. So guys, now your dashboard is going to be very important, right? It's going to help you see stuff on what's happening and what's not happening. So see, the question is, what was the Pythagoras theorem? You can see, right? You can see the latency 2.28 seconds. Then you can see the answer. Then okay, then you can see the second question. Then you can see like the answer. You can see the live dashboard is being maintained, right? You can see that uh, what is the count, what is the error, everything is getting logged, guys. So whenever you're building an application, right, I'll be explaining you when this becomes very important and useful. So let's just try to see one use case which they have given in their documentation, which is nice. So let's just type Pydantic, Pydantic AI, yeah, and let's just try to open their documentation, and let's just try to go down, go down, go down. Now just try to see. I don't think they would like mind if I play it. So now the thing is, guys, what they are doing essentially is, let's just move ahead a little bit. So see, guys, Right now, the example I showed you, it was more like a question answer thing. So you're able to see, sir, what is the monitoring happening? No magic is happening. Now see, let's say you build an agent that is calling SQL queries on top of the SQL base. Do you want to visualize what SQL queries were called? See, select name from customer where ID is equal to 1. You can actually see what SQL queries are being called. Now, once your application becomes complicated, would you be able to do everything in your Python notebook? .py file? No, you need a dashboard, right? That's why Pydantic helps. That's why Langsmith helps in designing production grade applications. Make sure you use these monitoring dashboards. And I'm not sure where do you guys work, but where do you guys work, just try to make sure that the data privacy and everything is well respected by these platforms. And probably that's it, guys. That was a I think an hour long tutorial on Pydantic AI, and we are pretty much through it. So we have covered every basic aspects of agent building, and let me give you my concluding notes. So guys, on the conclusion, I would like to state that start building stuff. So if you feel that a Python framework can help you to get started and just quickly get stuff done, I think Pydantic AI can be helpful. It's a little more simpler than LangGraph, although it also has a graph feature. So right now, graph is becoming extremely popular, and a lot of people even reached out to me for graph expertise. So graph is also kind of becoming a little more popular. And so guys, why do you think graph-based applications like agents, nodes, trees are becoming more popular? What do you think? The reason is that once you build a production grade system, let's say that has access to 50 function tools, things become very difficult, right? In visualizing in a .py file. So that's why, guys, sometimes just visualizing stuff, what is happening where, it really helps you. And these frameworks help you with that. If you want to just write a vanilla Python script, let's say with an SDK, maybe it's going to work for 90% of the use cases, but then that granular information which is needed for some 10% use cases, you would miss that. So that's why we are learning how to build agents using frameworks. And I think this was an exceptional lecture in terms of volume, right? So we've covered pretty much everything in one lecture. And I think in future there'll be many such cases where I just cover things at one go, because I think that's what people like a little more based on my assessment rather than small videos. So that's pretty much it. And guys, if you've stayed till here or anywhere, please just try to subscribe to my YouTube channel, guys. If you would subscribe, it would mean a lot. And essentially a lot of important stuff would also be planned up, right? Like this decade, I don't think any one of you should not be invested in AI. You can just pretty much do anything, but it needs to be left, right, and center needs to be AI. That's the demand of the market. And just try to stay connected and let me know if I can be helpful anywhere. Thanks and have a great day.